Since the Packers were 4-6, Aaron Rodgers has been playing next level. Just ask Max Kellerman, and he's lived up to his promise of running the table. Now the Packers have to play a high-powered Falcons offense in Atlanta, not at full strength. Jordy Nelson dealing with broken ribs. Devontae Adams has an ankle. Geronimo Allison a hamstring.
This is an injury threshold that all three of those guys have. Jordy, Devontae, and Geronimo. So they're all three distinctly different injuries. In the regular season, mindset, I would think none of them would play in this game. But obviously this is a different time, and this is a different point where we are in the season. Everybody understands what's on the line here.
Mike McCarthy keeping hope alive. Now the Falcons' Julio Jones is also hurt. He's dealing with a toe, but is expected to play. Max, what does Rodgers need to do to win this game?
He needs to do everything. He needs to. Aaron Rodgers, Stephen A., needs to be, like when you're in elementary school or junior high school and you got the Nerf ball in your bedroom and you throw the ball to yourself and then make the Odell grab with one hand and fall into the pillows, right? Like, that's what Aaron Rodgers needs to do. He needs to be able to throw the ball down the field and catch the ball himself. He needs to be able to play in his own secondary. He needs to be able to rush the passer. He needs to do the impossible here. He's on the road against a team that showed character and heart. It's easy for people to get caught up in the franchise of it all. The Atlanta Falcons fold when the pressure's on, because that's been the history of the franchise when you need them the most, right? But that's really the franchise. What about this iteration of the franchise? What about this team? This team showed character against Seattle, a team that's been there before, that's done that. When Seattle hit them, they hit back. When Seattle wanted to test them to see if they were real, Atlanta showed defensively and offensively they were real. Indoors, fast track, explosive offense, improving defense. Aaron Rodgers, without a secondary, now without most of his receivers, he's going to have to figure out somehow, Stephen A., how to drive down the field in a time-consuming way without a running game to try to somehow do this, stay close, and win with one of his miracle plays at the end of the game. If anyone could do it, it's him. It just may be too tall a task for anyone.
Well, if you want to get specific, you could talk about throwing for over 300 yards, not throwing any interceptions, keeping the turnovers at a minimum, if not making sure they're null and void. But to me, to answer the question directly, it's not about what Aaron Rodgers has to do at all. I expect Aaron Rodgers to do what he does. I expect him to dance inside and outside the pocket, extend plays, create plays, and throw the ball on target. The question is, who's going to be there to catch the football for you? And that brings me to Randall Cobb. I think Randall Cobb is the one that has to step up. I think he's the one that has to have a monster game. With Jordy Nelson being gone, with Geronimo Allison being hobbled, along with others, it's a simple situation where Randall Cobb, who's had a stellar postseason, has to continue riding this wave. He's got to show up this Sunday afternoon in the ATL and play at an all-pro level. He's got to be that dude, because Aaron Rodgers needs help. He can sit up there and do everything right, but if cats don't step up and catch the football, it's not going to mean a damn thing. I have no question in my mind, no doubt about what Aaron Rodgers is going to do. If they lose this game, it's certainly not going to be his fault in my estimation. But I do believe that Randall Cobb has got to step up. He's got to be that marquee guy to help Aaron Rodgers, and somebody's got to run the football for them. There's no question, because Atlanta's going to come. I'm looking at Atlanta's defense with Beasley and Claiborne, even the ageless wonder, Dwight Freeney and others. And you're like, listen, Atlanta's coming. They're going to have to answer the bell and put up some points, because there's no way that Atlanta is going to lose this game if Green Bay doesn't put up, if Green Bay doesn't put up points. They got to be able to put up some points, some major points. I'm talking about 20, 25 plus in order to beat Atlanta.
Look, the reason I'm taking the Falcons is the same reason that I said if Aaron Rodgers actually wins the Super Bowl this year, it's the greatest performance by a single player in the history of the NFL. Because I think it's that unlikely. He would really have to upset the odds to do it. It's not as important as the quarterback position is. It's not quite like a dominant starting pitcher in baseball. You give him the ball, he's not giving up any hits, and no one's getting on base, getting everyone out. Good luck beating him. It's not quite like a goalie standing on their head in hockey. No matter what else you have around you, if you have that guy, you're very likely to win. It's not even like a superstar basketball player on a team with just enough around him. LeBron James last year down 3-1 to a 73-win team. It's not quite like that. The hottest quarterback in the world generally, or really have they ever, overcome such disadvantages across the board, including on offense. It's not just that the defense can't stop the Atlanta Falcons offense on paper. It's that the offense is hobbled literally right now. It's a tall, tall task for Aaron Rodgers. And this odyssey he's been on, overcoming the odds, running the table, upsetting the Cowboys, beating the Giants defense when it looked like they had him on the ropes, upsetting the Cowboys on the road. Each one seems increasingly difficult and increasingly unlikely, and that's why he gets so much credit if and when he pulls it off. But this one, against this Falcons team, as hot as they are, I think it's just too much.
Well, it's definitely too much. I mean, it's not just about how hot they are. I mean, when you think about Vic Beasley, man, this dude has 15 and a half sacks this year. I mean, this brother gets it done. And he's only 24 years of age, learning from the experience of a Dwight Freeney, who's got about 3 sacks himself. You've got Claiborne, who's got about 5 sacks. You've got Keanu Neal and the rest of these boys. They get after it. And even though they seem a bit haphazard and their defense at times hasn't been there, which is why they're ranked like 27th or 28th in the NFL, they've shown an ability to make plays when it counts. And so when I look at how hobbled Green Bay is, I say to myself, okay, you could end up getting exposed because these guys do have some quickness to them. But it's really the offense. I can't say enough about it. I told y'all last week going into that Seattle game, watch Tevin Coleman. This brother could come out of the backfield and catch passes. He can make things happen, which he did against Seattle. Devontae Freeman, he's a 1,000-yard rusher. Both of them are averaging over 4 yards a carry. It's not just about Julio Jones, who, by the way, isn't 100% healthy and has the toe injury and what have you, but you got Mohamed Sanu as well. And so you look at a Matt Ryan, he's got a plethora of targets, but to me, he's even more of a key than Aaron Rodgers because I know what Aaron Rodgers is going to do. I believe what Matt Ryan might do, but I don't know. He's 1-4 in the postseason. Numbers in practically every category that matters go down come postseason time in the 5 postseason games that Matt Ryan has played. I don't think that's an accident. Times get tight. You got to wonder what he's going to do.
But one thing, they also have Tevin Coleman and Devontae Freeman, Stephen A., and I think it's going to be tough for that defense to stop. They've had 13 players on that Atlanta team score touchdowns this year. So it doesn't, what I'm saying is it's more pressure on Aaron Rodgers in the sense he has no running game. And look at all the offensive firepower that Matt Ryan has. He can rely on them running the ball.
Well, see, I threw out those facts about Devontae Freeman and Tevin Coleman, Molly, but here's the part that I think you're missing. The reason why I think there isn't that much pressure on Rodgers is because what is there to expect? Because of the injuries, because he doesn't have much to work with. Could you imagine if Aaron Rodgers, with a bunch of hobbled receivers around him and no running game, goes up into the ATL and outduels Matt Ryan, who has all his requisite weapons available to him, plus home field advantage in an NFC championship game with you being a top 2 league MVP candidate and you pick Sunday's NFC championship game to not show up? That would be bad for Matt Ryan.
There's also he also has a running game to rely on.
There's also the greater context of all of this in which this is occurring. On the one hand, Aaron Rodgers, if he somehow pulls off a miracle of miracles again and again in the Super Bowl, goes from among the all-time greats to elevated on that list, maybe the best ever. He's in the conversation for the greatest quarterback of all time, and people will take that increasingly seriously. Versus Matt Ryan, the jump from among the greatest ever to higher on that list is one thing. Your legacy is secure either way. Matt Ryan is, regular season statistical quarterback. Can't trust him when the pressure's on. That's more pressure to actually leave a legacy, to get to a Super Bowl, to be a guy about whom people can say not only is he a juggernaut during the regular season, but he can ball when it matters most. That's a bigger jump for him to take than Aaron Rodgers.
I'm confused. I'm confused. Who are you saying has the most pressure on him?
Matt Ryan, therefore.
Okay,
Aaron
that's
Rodgers,
what I'm saying.
Aaron Rodgers is more important because Aaron Rodgers is the most important player in every game because he's the best player. He can do the most with the least, etc. But in terms of who the pressure's on, it's not just the moment we're in. It's the context of their careers. It's Matt Ryan.
All right, you both agree.
That's what I'm saying. It's Matt Ryan.
Let's leave it there. Atlanta favored by 5 this weekend, but we want to get a little reminder of how this matchup went down earlier this season.
We've lost 2 in a row. We don't want this to happen again. And you go win the game.
Matt gonna gun it deep, looking for Gabriel. Little guy caught it. Touchdown Atlanta. Rodgers looking around, rolling, wings it over the middle. He's got it. Jeff Janis. 35 seconds left. Ryan the snap. Matt looks. End zone. Caught. Sanu. Touchdown Atlanta. Any questions about the guts of number 2? Look who the last man standing at the shootout was today.
Yeah, it's frustrating. I'm just so proud of those guys and the way they battled.
Don't call a guy Matty Ice for no reason. The guy got ice in his vein.
It was a battle last time they met. Stephen A., do you think the Falcons will rise up and get it done at home?
They have to. I have to go with the Falcons in this particular instance simply because the requisite weapons that they have available to them, along with that crowd, along with the fact that this is the very last game in that Georgia Dome before they knew they moved to their new stadium. There's so much from a destiny perspective that seems to be favoring them right now. Had it not been to the injuries to Green Bay, that would be different because you talk about Aaron Rodgers having Jordy Nelson and Randall Cobb and Ty Montgomery and Eddie Lacy, you know, all of these guys at his disposal along with Devontae Adams, but with his ankle injury, with Geronimo Allison and his hamstring, with Jordy Nelson and his ribs, with Eddie Lacy being gone weeks ago, with Ty Montgomery not 100%. I mean, it just seems like some black cat has run around the Green Bay Packers organization in terms of injuries, and this is not the opportune time for that stuff to be happening. They're in the NFC Championship game. They've accomplished a lot, no question about it. They've won 8 straight. They've been phenomenal. But in the end, I just think that all the things point to Atlanta going to the Super Bowl this year. Everything just seems to fall in line for them right now. Rarely does it happen like that, but I think when it happens, you have to pay attention to it. You have to notice it. I think it'll be a high-scoring shootout. It wouldn't surprise me at all if somebody dropped 40, but at the end of the day, I really, really think this is a game that Green Bay will lose along the lines of 42-36.
Let's not forget that for a lot of this season, the 2 teams that you were keeping your eye on because offensively they were so special that if they could just get the defense together and stay healthy, boy, look out. In the AFC, you're talking about the Raiders. In the NFC, the Falcons, right? Those were they were kind of not exactly mirror images of each other, but they occupied that same niche. Probably not this year because the defense isn't good enough, but whoa, if they could get that defense together, that offense is unstoppable. Of course, Carr gets hurt, so the Raiders drop out, but Matt Ryan didn't, and the Falcons' defense has improved, and so they're still in it. And they're at home. And Green Bay is banged up. I would say I also like the Falcons. I think you can't put anything past Aaron Rodgers, but I don't think he's concerned with his stats or, you know, whether or not he turns the ball over in gunning for a win. I think as a result, he will. I think that Atlanta goes up early and Aaron Rodgers is going to be forced to try to make things happen, even if they're not there, even at the expense of his own reputation, because otherwise they'll have no shot. And as a result, I think that actually helps the Atlanta defense. I'm going to say 34-24, a slightly lower scoring game than people anticipate, with maybe a key turnover by Aaron Rodgers. I'm going to go with the Falcons.
All right.
One question for you before you guys move on, because obviously I both know the love fest you have for Aaron Rodgers. If his receivers weren't banged up, would you be going with the Packers?
I would be going with Aaron Rodgers.
So it's just based on the Jordy and
Yes.
Devontae. Is it the same thing for you? Would you have had faith in Atlanta if
I
they
would
were
probably
at
have
full
taken.
strength?
I probably would have said that the analysis all says the Falcons anyway. I have faith in Aaron Rodgers, partly because he throws receivers open. But in order to do that, you do need some chemistry with your receivers. And if the guys getting the majority of the snaps for the majority of the season suddenly aren't there, the chemistry's simply not going to be the same. In fact, that's what plagued Aaron Rodgers and the Packers, if you recall, the first 6-8 weeks of the season. And he pointed to that. He pointed to injuries taking a toll on the chemistry he had with his receivers.
Yep.
Well, he's right back in that position now.
But let's not forget also Matt Ryan. Julio isn't 100% either.
That's
He's
right.
dealing with an injury. I know it's not ribs, but he's still dealing with the toe. So if for some reason he gets really banged up, he's got to deal with that.
Fortunately for them, they're playing a very weak Green Bay secondary.
Yes.